Good afternoon, everybody. I'm John Strickland. Welcome to the World Aviation Festival here in Lisbon 2025. Good to see you. Hopefully we're going to give you some entertaining, or perhaps the better word is more informative sessions in the next 90 minutes, looking at airline activity, whether it is technical, operational, customer, many different aspects. And I'd like to welcome as my first guest to these sessions, Eddie Wilson. Eddie Wilson is CEO of Ryanair DAC, the largest part of the Ryanair group. There you go. You've got your fan base in, Eddie.
Brought him in early.
Absolutely. Eddie, well, welcome to Lisbon. You told me you got in trouble-free yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Always helpful, and the Ryanair Bugle was called into use for on-time flight.
On time, yeah.
Eddie, we're close as we speak towards the end of the summer season. How's it looking so far? I know also you're in a closed period financially.
Yeah, I mean, public company in a closed period. We had said previously on our guidance that we would hope to recover some, if not all, increasingly confident of recovering that for the summer season, and there's been no change to that. So, but like the summer was, it was very positive.
Yeah, I mean certainly what I see, whether I look at your monthly traffic stats or others, is it's certainly been a very buoyant market, and we'll look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Yeah, I mean we hit our load factors, like we've opened new bases, new routes, so. It's all been good, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Eddie, as ever, there's always so many things we could talk about with you. I want to try to put a bit of a technical spin on the first couple or so questions. Ryanair's invested for quite a number of years now with Ryanair Labs in technology across the business. We've heard from some of the earlier sessions today about operational challenges. I mean, there's a lot you could talk about, ATC, for example. Tell us about technology. What role has that been performing there in terms of actually delivering a good operation?
Yeah, I think we're really well positioned. I mean, people talk about AI, but like it's a broad church. I mean, I split them up into a number of areas. We do have AI solutions with bots, etc. Not only externally but internally. We've got machine learning, non-generative, but that has been delivering very predictable uplifts in on our revenue models. And then I think on our optimization, what we've delivered in terms of managing how we position aircraft around the network, how we design our schedules, all these things. What happens is that with a formulaic model like Ryanair, it's like falling off a log when you've got all these tools in front of you in terms of extra cost cuts all the time. And they come from optimization of your aircraft, so you get an extra turn on the aircraft, rejigging your schedules. When we did that, the human eye couldn't see it, and we created free aircraft out of that without changing any slots, without changing any routes, just by rejigging the Jenga pieces around. So we can see we've got a fantastic sort of model there, because if we're going to grow with another 300 aircraft, I'm not going to grow support staff, and we've been doing this for the last 2 years. We're not growing them linear to the business. The vast majority of people who are employed by us are pilots, cabin crew, engineers, and those that check in at the airport. Have as few people as possible, and because we're moving 600,000 people a day at the moment, and when it goes wrong, you can't solve those problems with people. It's got to be technology.
Yeah, because the sheer volume. And how many aircraft in the fleet? It's over
we've got we've got 620 plus at the moment, and we've 300 more coming. But like even on bad days, it enables us to recover faster than airlines a fraction of our size, because we haven't got the time for it all to settle when you've got a meltdown day. What happens is that we've got these predictive models that are already assigning crews for the next day, rather than having call centers inside where people are just ringing in the next person who comes along, put them on this flight. That doesn't work when you've got 600 plus aircraft. You've got to be rebuilding that schedule, predicting most of it, so they don't have to contact you, and you're messaging them automatically. Look, it's not Disneyland, but it enables you to have a plan. And anyone who works in the airline industry, in the ops center, you have to have a plan. you know?
Well, you've talked before about avoiding those resignation letters coming in from ops staff on meltdown days.
Yeah.
Does it indeed mean that not by any means that the ops controllers have an easy life, but they have a calmer life?
But they do.
They know they can
They absolutely
stand back
have a
rather than
more
that.
predictable life. And what we did was we repositioned all those people. We have a bridge in our operations center. So we put in the social media people in there. We put in the disruption system, which we actually developed ourselves. And that disruption system it's called Raven we have. And they're able to just toggle all the flights, like more than an hour, more than 3 hour delays. They're all integrated. They can talk to the engineering person beside them. Is there a rescue aircraft coming? All that. That information goes straight out onto the app. So you're giving real information to people, not from some other building somewhere. So we put all those people in together, and it makes for far better decision making.
And does it allow the human element still, whether it's through the ops people in Dublin or locally? It might be, let's say, an airport manager rings up and says, XYZ is going on here. Are you aware of that?
Well, as we all know, generally the person at the gate knows the least amount about what's going on, right? Yeah. And generally spread panic amongst the passengers. You know? So it's all about being data driven. It's about getting what you can get right. We've introduced a number of data points on getting aircraft away, rather than chasing up airports as to why they were delayed yesterday. We obviously know who's first to go through the gate. We now know who's first to go through the door of the aircraft because the cabin crew scanned them. We put a sensor on the aircraft, on the door. We know when the doors are closed. We've all the data we want to know what airports are performing, what airports aren't, and what we can do. And that has actively moved the dial. So I don't think about AI about taking jobs away, because we have very few jobs that support the operation, but just better decisions.
Using the people better.
Yeah, I mean, even on the models that we use on the machine learning side, I think the sweet spot is where you've got a combination of people with those models, because those models have to hit the load factor first. You have to hit the load factor in Ryanair, and then you got to hit the fare. So people always hit the load factor, whereas the machine will hold out a bit longer, but sometimes the machine doesn't know what's happening either. So I think that fusion between, and I'm talking about a relatively small amount of people, but I think that's, I'm less impressed by complete automation. I'm more impressed with optimization and what that has done for our aircraft utilization and how you recover the bad days. And we have seen noticeable decreases in our costs there because we haven't had to hire people.
And what does it mean, that the other side of the coin, for passengers, their experience of using Ryanair when they travel these days?
Because they got better information, right? They got better information on their way to the airport. Okay, we've got AI-generated videos that, and they can be localized in languages, just by toggling it on a screen as part of that Raven system. So they know, there's high winds, whatever, you're likely to be delayed. You try and give that information so that people on the aircraft, you're giving that information to the cabin crew and the pilots at the same time. People just want information. And again, it's not perfect, but we're getting better and better at it. We're also turning that into sales opportunities. We have a Bluetooth model of order to seat, where when you're on the way to the aircraft now, you can driving in, you can actually order what you're going to have. So lots of these things, and I think the information is going to get better, and we're going to be better able to handle disruption, moving people from one aircraft gauge to another, because before that we only had one aircraft gauge. Now we've got several, because we've got
We've got two types of 737 in the fleet.
Two types of 737s.
Max
and then we've got the Max
800s.
10 coming. So and that's where digital boarding card is going to come in, because it'll just zap your new seats to you while you're standing at the gate.
And that's happening right now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to happen on November 12th.
November, okay.
12th. So 80% of people already check in or use a mobile phone. But the first iteration of this it'll be much better at handling disruption, so that the person who bought the extra legroom on the 800 gets assigned the seat on the extra legroom on the Max 8, and so on, and all those things happen.
So it will reduce disappointment when configuration changes happen and people say, but I paid for that seat.
Yeah, you don't have all this at the gate,
Right.
It just happens. Boom. Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't make that sound. Just
In terms of, I'm assuming that your age profile of customers is skewed towards younger, but what about older gen kind of people, like you and I, traveling?
Yeah, exactly. Like
We used to have bits of paper
I'm rattling around, you know, and you know, I want to bring my paper and my boarding card, but like on the phone. But like 80% of people do it. All the concert providers do it. If you lose your phone, your battery dies, we'll deal with it the way we deal with it today. There'll be no more boarding recard or boarding reissue fee, because you won't have to have one, because if you've already checked in, we'll give you a boarding card, okay? But like, if you can't check in, you can't check in, right? Okay, and you're gonna have to check in on the app. And I think we do a great disservice to people to saying just because you're older, that you can't use
I do think I saw Michael O'Leary quoted the other day saying, well, these elderly people, they're fine because they ask their kids or their grandkids and they shove-mounted it.
Well, they do, and they always seem to find the lowest fares as well, particularly in the off-peak, you know?
Eddie, a couple of other completely different things in the short time we've got available. Sustainability is still there on the agenda. You've talked about this before, and targets, I think, is it 12.5% SAF by 2030? How's that going? We heard on the earlier sessions challenges outside of airline control.
Like we haven't lost our focus on that, but I think some of the hysteria about this has waned. The aircraft still burn less fuel, 16%, and less fuel per passenger. The new aircraft will be 20% less, 50% less noise on the MAX 10. So those things are going to be there, those real goals. But the question on, yes, we still have those targets for SAF, but I mean, it's like governments just make these announcements and mandates and all sorts of things, but you know, can it be produced? And the energy companies are not producing sufficient amounts of it at the moment. And unfortunately, governments tend to do populist things and make announcements and don't think it through. So we'll be there to use the SAF. You need a critical mass of it so that the price falls. But we're delivering still. We've got excellent CDP ratings, and you know, we've got the best ratings, I think, in Europe on our sustainability in terms of fuel burn and noise and all that good stuff. And that's not going to go away. But it's less fashionable than it was. Okay.
And Eddie, one other thing, you mentioned governments there, obviously a key part of the whole sustainability debate. We also see governments very active in regulation. We've heard about governments saying that everybody should be allowed to take a under-seat bag and a wheelie bag as well as part of a fare. There's a lot going on there in EU and EU states. What's the latest on that? Are you pushing back on that?
Yeah, you just see, like this morning in Spain, for example, like you have ministers in Spain, like whose primary goal is to get re-elected the next time, right? Okay, pontificating on aircraft, and everyone can bring a bag. They can't bring a bag. There isn't enough room for them. Everybody gets to bring a small bag that goes under the seat, and not unreasonably, if you want to bring a bag for the limited space, you've got to pay for it. And I'm delighted this morning to see that the EU Commission have opened infringement decisions or infringement procedure against Spain, because the law that they passed runs counter to EU competition law. You can't tell people what they want, or that they have to include bags when we've transformed this industry. And you look at what's happened in Spain in terms of tourist traffic. We disintermediated pricing, which means that those who don't want to pay for a bag or pay for their seat or pay for the other ancillaries get the lowest fare. That's not unreasonable. But by making these grandiose grandstand announcements by politicians, you know, as much about bags as a well-known Irish novelist once said, as much about, as my Irish does about snipe shooting, I think Brendan Behan said. And, you know, they are being called to account now. It's just populist. It doesn't mean anything whatsoever. And now you've got the EU saying, you're breaking the law, let the airlines do what they want to do, which is disintermediate pricing, because if you forced everyone to bring a bag, even if you could, it means that people who don't bring those would have higher airfares. You know, so we want to have the lowest.
That's the key. I mean, not only higher airfares, but the fact that airfares have fallen dramatically over what, 20, 30-year period?
Yeah, absolutely. They're going after the wrong things. They should be going after these, you know, intermediaries or whatever that are who are not telling consumers about hidden charges. You know,
or maybe they should be going after ATC.
An ATC, they
So
could
this-
solve it in the morning. Just have overflights for a French air traffic control strike. Look at this conference probably wouldn't have happened this week if the French ATC had called off their strike, because nobody would have been able to get here. And if they got here, they wouldn't be able to get out of here. And that's because they've got a problem with the French government. Who cares about that in Portugal or Italy?
Are you getting
or
any
Spain?
traction on that? Because I mean, we see it frequently.
I think we
again,
are.
Releases about Ursula von der Leyen again.
Yeah, von der Leyen. Yeah, I mean,
Michael
all that
lobbying.
she has to do is separate the airspace, and you have overflights. If there's a Greek air traffic control strike, a Spanish one or a German one, they allow overflights, because not unreasonably, you should just have industrial action in your jurisdiction, and it shouldn't impinge on the freedom of movement. One of the four core principles of the European Union is that you can move around the European Union, and you have French air traffic controllers who are doing the equivalent of, French farmers demonstrating on the mall in London about the price of French lamb. Nobody cares in London about it. Do that in Paris. And that's what the French air traffic control should do. Eurocontrol should control upper airspace, and those who are outside of France should be able to cross Europe unimpeded. And it is simple to do it at the stroke of a pen. But Ursula von der Leyen is delayed doing something else, or probably has a view on baggage policy as well.
Well, as you said, Eddie, at least we're lucky we've got a full hall here, because we all managed to get here, and we should all manage to get back. So we're out of time for now, Eddie. You're going to grace us with your presence again in about 45 minutes. So Eddie Wilson, CEO of Ryanair, thanks very much for now.
Thanks, John.
Thanks very much, Eddie.
Thank you. Thank you.